Good evening, everybody. You know that feeling when you always want to have your hood up when it rains and then it never stays on because of bloody wind? Or you want to keep the hood off because you know it's not raining and it keeps blowing on. That's what I'm suffering from right now. But of course, you didn't come here to find out whether or not I'm coated in problems. No, I wanted to talk a little bit more about wishy-washy Sunak. Though to be fair, you could actually blanket statement this across all the mainstream parties. Oh, and why is it now that so many mainstream political parties have to resort to smear tactics? That's a question I need to ask, because it always seems to come from these mainstream parties, usually when they don't have a credible point to make. Such as the statement made by wishy-washy Sunak, which basically said that if we vote Angela Rayner and a Labour government, it's going to damage the country. What he really means to say is it's probably going to damage all his Tory donors and what have you. Now, quite frankly, I'm going to put in my own thoughts on this shit, because quite frankly, I don't want a Labour or a Tory party in, and I'm pretty sure a lot of other people are on my side on this one. Speaking of which, there was actually a little speech that wishy-washy Sunak made, and there was one woman in the background. And this particular woman has now become an instant star. All because she pulled a face that was like, oh, really? Yeah, you're full of shit, bud. Though to be fair, anybody could do that shit at this point. Just give me a cardboard cutout and see me pull the weirdest face you've ever seen. Anyway, this thing is just really showcasing more than anything else. Not just how petty our mainstream media are, but also the fact that people are actually paying attention to the lies and the tripe that keep coming out of our politicians' mouths. There are two terms right now that are coming to my mind when I think of these politicians. The little song, I'm a little teapot, short and stout, I open my mouth and shite comes out. And of course the other one, which is, how do you know a politician is lying? He opens his mouth. But it does beg the question, when does a politician ever tell the truth? Because after all, that saying is true of even a broken clock can be right twice a day. But bringing it back to the point of why do these people keep doing the smear tactics? As I said, I think personally it's mainly because they don't really have many, if any, factual points to put across. So rather than telling the truth and actually showcasing why their party is the best option to go for, or the factual points about things like immigration, the cost of living, people who sponge off the system, and our security and what have you, they would rather go on a fucking name-calling tear and be like, well, you see her? You see him? You see that pangender or transgender or whatever fucking gender it is? That person, they're not good. They're very, very bad for reasons X, Y, Z, and they should not be voted for. Like, come on. Are you fucking children? I mean, that's honestly what it feels like right now. It feels like a bunch of school children playing as politicians, or is it the other way around, politicians playing as school children, basically saying, well, how he called me this, and he called me that. Like, this is a serious bloody debate, not a school playground debate or what have you. And you guys should at least have the decency to act like adults, even if you aren't in your mind. And here's the thing. Bringing back the point of Brexit, why do you think that campaign was successful? I'll tell you why. It's because the vast majority of what the Brexiteers did was, rather than Project Fear or name-calling or smear tactics, people like Nigel Farage spoke the truth, for the most part. But of course the mainstream media would rather focus on the negatives, which is why they usually are very quick to point out, what about the lie that Boris Johnson said about, let's put £350 million into our NHS, which at this point may as well be called the IHS, the Immigration Health Service, or FHS, fucking hopeless service. Finally out of that shithole reign. Anyway, what they've always been saying about the NHS is that it's meant to be a health service for anybody who's here. Though at this point, because of illegal immigration, which nobody ever wants to talk about until the election, is that all this migration has caused the NHS to be completely overwhelmed and basically make it so you'll be lucky to get an appointment with the NHS in the next 6 months. And as I said in my previous video, it's sad that our career politicians will only talk about the serious issues and say what they basically think that we want to hear when it's the election. Other than that, it's basically, oh, let's open the filing cabinet and file this away and never worry about it ever again until the next 4 or 5 years. But of course the mainstream media won't tell you this, because say it with me, folks, it doesn't suit the narrative. If somebody actually provided factual points on just about any frigging subject to do with this country, do you really think that they're going to stand a chance, the mainstream parties, against the person telling straight up facts and dropping bombshells? Do you? I don't. I think they will immediately go towards the name tags and start fucking chucking them out like they're frisbees all over again. Oh, you shouldn't listen to Nigel Farage because he's far right. Or we should be very careful of the rise of the far right, which Nigel Farage would be promoting, and all the usual bollocks from the mainstream parties. Now, last time I checked, to actually be far right, you would have to be someone who basically advocates for white supremacy and behave akin to the Nazis and basically want to exterminate or remove all other races, religions, creeds and what have you. A bit like the KKK, basically. That's what you'd have to be truly far right. Not the fake far right that the mainstream media and the politicians who are in it for their own careers would like to paint us as. We are patriots, nationalists, maybe, at a push. But to say we're far right is a complete and utter bullshit remark, and frankly should really be considered libel and slander, because that is basically associating us with people we genuinely don't want in our country. And I'll ask you this: what is far right about wanting to control our borders? What is far right about wanting to put our national security first? What is far right about putting British patriots first? What is far right about making sure that we house the veterans who fought 2 world wars for us, and remember the founding fathers and forefathers who fucking died for our country? What's far right about putting them first? Someone want to send me a postcard to whatthefucksgoingon.com? Because I guarantee you, anybody with even half a brain cell will tell you there is nothing that is far right about what we stand for and believe in. But of course, the mainstream media do not want you to know that. And our career politicians will do everything they can to persuade you otherwise. Think of it like this. I think the Reform Party is going to argue a lot of key points that a lot of people who you could consider maybe on the right side of the spectrum as far as political standing is concerned are going to be appreciative of. Now, I didn't actually look at the Reform UK debate yet, or sorry, not the debate, what their immigration policy reveal. I have a sneaky suspicion I know what it's going to be. It's going to be sensible things like actually limiting the number of people that come into our country and backfiring their car. Anyway, I think it's going to be mainly about seeing people effectively limited in the numbers they can come here, and deporting anybody who's here illegally, and deal with any criminals who want to commit criminal acts over here. But of course, as soon as I find out more about this, I'll let you know. I will say this much for free. Anybody who can argue the facts with these career politicians will destroy them, just like that. Because at the end of the day, people like Nigel Farage, Richard Tice, Ben Habib, they'll be able to argue the facts, while the mainstream media and the career politicians will be scrambling over one another to see who can throw the first name tag. Because that's all they're really good at the end of the day. They're good at throwing name tags and lying to us, the British public. Though I will say this much, at least Diane Abbott, or maybe I was right first time, is at least not being allowed to stand for election. Though, to be fair, it would be a whitewash anyway, even if she was allowed to actually be an MP, for the simple fact that she can't even do simple bloody maths. Like, anybody who's seen how she tries to calculate maths, I mean, you don't need me to finish that shit, because it practically does itself. Christ, I nearly ended up hospitalised, nearly had a car come and sideswipe us. Anyway, the main point is, these politicians won't stand a chance against somebody who actually wants the best for Britain, who actually is able to argue the facts, as I said. I can't stress that enough. The career politicians will not be able to hold a candle to some of these people, for the simple fact they are so used to bullshitting the British public, they're so used to blagging it, that they won't be able to have the credentials, the credibility, and the capacity to persuade the British public to vote for them, unless, unfortunately, because we do have a lot of them, we have public, or members of the public, who are essentially just sheep. People who can't think for themselves, can't do their own research, won't actually go out of their way to figure out if something is true or not, and will just happily eat the spoon-fed shit that the mainstream media and the career politicians will feed them. What I find sad, though, is there are going to be people who are the same as me, who want to tell their family to get on board and understand the situation we're in. But unfortunately, as has been for the last 6 years of my life, when I've tried to debate these points, say what I'm going to say, unfortunately, the family members that I have are either pro-lefties who don't want to listen to reason, or more the latter than the former, they're people who are at the age where they've given up. Because the thing is, it's much easier to just throw in the towel, or my glasses, cleaning cloth in this case. Anyway, it's much easier to throw in the towel than actually to stand up and fight. It's much easier just to take the easy way out. And in some cases I've done that myself, as far as what my sister put me through with the blackmail, the emotional blackmail of delete your channel or be disowned. But you've got to remember that these guys do this not because they have your best interests at heart, but because, and this is as far as the people on the left are concerned, by the way, most of them are malicious with their intent. Why else do you think Hate Not Hope go out of their way to attack people who are considered far right, and call up their agencies, call up the people who they work for, and basically try to say, look, you've got a person who's this, that, and the other, you want to consider getting rid of them. Cancel them, remove their jobs. Isn't that illegal? Isn't it illegal to actually go out of your way to maliciously cause someone to lose their job? I wonder how a court case would go with that. Loss of wages. Let's see Hate Not Hope reimburse people for that. But I suspect they'll use some kind of excuse to weasel their way out of it. And the way I look at it more than anything, I'm kind of drawn, because it's like, on the one hand, Hate Not Hope are probably the main people who should pay, because they're the ones who are going out maliciously targeting you. But on the other hand, if the companies don't actually do their due diligence and actually research there, I guess to some extent they could also be responsible. But I'd like to think that it's more the former rather than the latter. But it's not us that's the problem. That's just the left projecting their problems onto us. How they keep throwing out the name tags and what have you, because they don't have a credible argument. It's sad to think that there are people who would go out of their way to do things like this. Because the way I look at things is that it shouldn't matter unless you're inciting violence or terrorism what your views are. It should come down to, are you able to do the job? Are you capable of fulfilling your KPIs, yes or no? And if you are, that should be the end of it, unless you're inciting terrorism or violence or encouraging criminal activity. Like, no matter how much I may like or dislike my sister, I'd never go out of my way to cause her to lose her job, because I'd like to think I've got a moral compass in here. But the left-wingers love doing this kind of shit. They absolutely love it. Anything that can demonetize, cancel, and destroy the lives of other people, they're willing to do it. At least with the people who are giving up, they might not want the illest of intentions for you. It may just be that they really are too old. Maybe they're like fucking 80 or 90 years old and they can't actually make the trip, or they've got a condition that physically prevents them from being where they're going to be. Well, I don't have that problem for the 1st of June, let me tell you. I'm probably changing my plans, by the way, though. Not for actually going there, but how I'm going to get there, generally speaking. I know I spoke to a group of people and they said they were going to meet me. I'm just going to stick to my own plan, and I'm going to try and be down there well in advance, just to play safe more than anything. But it is sad that a lot of people have taken this path of, I can't do it, it's my age, it's my age, even though they're capable of doing it, or we're not going to change anything and you're not going to change anything. This kind of pessimistic and negative attitude. You don't get anywhere with a negative attitude, and evil only wins when good people choose to do nothing. Everyone at the end of the day has a part to play. God, I'm a poet. Anyway, everyone has their part to play. That's why in the past, when I first started my activism, back when Tommy Robinson was about to have his, the Leeds Crown Court shit, he was about to have it in the Old Bailey, where he'd be tried by a judge, not a jury, as usual, as tends to be his life. But I'm not here to talk about the pedantics of Tommy Robinson, but I was down there. I did that, even though my mum and my sister were like, don't go, you shouldn't go, and don't go, basically forcing me to stay, or essentially not wanting me to go. And I went anyway, because I knew damn well this is bigger than just, oh, you should listen to your parents and do as you're told. This is a matter of, this is our government betraying its people. This is our government of career politicians who are willing to fuck us over, bluntly speaking, and fuck over people like Tommy Robinson. And if they can do it to him, do you think you're gonna be any safer? Do you? I know I wouldn't be. Mind you, they might need like 6 fucking people because of how much I weigh, but that's beside the point. The point is, I would not be any less vulnerable than he is. But I know also when I went to Salford, and that one I was actually invited over to. That one where Tommy was standing for MEP. That one where I was invited up on stage, and I was more worried about my crisps. That was a good thing, wasn't it? But no, I was invited down there. I didn't have to go. I could have just said, nope, I'm going to stay here, I'm going to stay at home. Or I could listen to my mum and say, I'm not going to go. I will listen to what she wants. But I knew deep down that this was what I had to do. I knew deep down that this required every man, every person to attend. Likewise, and this is even more so the case, the 1st of June, I have now got my plans set. So unless the fucking railway station decides to have closures or what have you, or has massive delays, I fully plan to be down there on the 1st of June. Mark my words. That's now my promise. I was tentative before, but I'm certain now. And I'm certain that the only way we are going to claim our country back from these left-wing traitors is if we all show up there. 1st of June, 12 o'clock onwards, London Victoria Station, all the way to Parliament Square for 2 p.m. And we showcase to the traitors in Parliament, and of course, our two-tier police, that we will no longer stand idly by while people in power who serve only themselves for this continue to press the thumb on ordinary people. We've had enough. We're coming for you, establishment, and we're going to make sure our country is looked after. You may not care for this country, but we do. And we will make sure that you are held to account on the 1st of June in the name of every single British person, man, woman and child and even baby. We will put you on full blast and we will reclaim this country and get the reform it desperately needs.